All right, week 8 in the books. Week 9 coming up. Coulrophobics Anonymous podcast. Getting right into it. Waivers and trades. The biggest trade of the last week involved myself and Bootsy. I got Cutler and Steve Breston for Larry Fitzgerald. I think it's a pretty even swap. I, as well documented, needed help at the quarterback position, and I think Breston is a decent pickup as a fourth or a fifth wide receiver. Gives me some depth. And Larry Fitzgerald, obviously is very good. I think he averages like 80 or 90 yards a game, but, just is not scoring touchdowns and is not just sort of pissing me off. So I had no problem getting rid of him. Hopefully Cutler can not suck for the rest of the season. But, this is a first for the podcast. I actually have the opportunity to take you inside the world of a Coulrophobics Anonymous GM. I do have some of the negotiations between myself and Bootsy during this trade via G-Chat. So started off with me saying, any interest in Larry Fitzgerald for one of your quarterbacks? Alex responded, for Cutler? I said, well, he would be my third choice, referring to Stafford and Tebow. Alex says, yeah. I say, I guess I could do Fitzgerald for Cutler and Steve Breston. Bootsy responds, I'm definitely interested in that. I don't want to commit to anything because I'm a little high right now. Me, that's amazing. Alex, I stayed home from work today. Started to get a cold. Didn't want to be sick this weekend. What better way to fight a cold than with a little bit of the ganja? Me, permission to share this dialogue with the rest of the league at a later date? Alex, of course. Me, all right, well, I'm comfortable with that offer. Take your time. I'm going to lunch. Bootsy, all right, we'll talk later. So there you have it. Some first-hand documentation of very high-level elite trade talks. Obviously, later in the day, we ended up putting that one through. As far as waivers go, I actually also made the biggest splash in waivers as well, bidding $32 for Tavares Jackson. Hopefully, I'm kind of solidifying my quarterback position with Cutler and Jackson. I'll touch on that a little bit more later, but obviously, it's an improvement over the injured Sam Bradford and Blaine Gabbert, or as I will refer to him, he who shall not be spoken of ever again. Also, Ben picked up Kyle Orton for $15. I'm not sure about this move. I think Brady Quinn is the next guy they'll go to, but obviously it's not a terrible decision as Tim Tebow has proven himself completely, unusable from a reality standpoint and looks to get benched pretty soon. Also, Bootsy got Javon Ringer for $0. I thought this was a pretty good move by him. Ringer has been decent, and Chris Johnson has just been absolutely terrible. So, nice move by Bootsy. All right, power rankings. We'll flip it a little bit. We'll start at the top. We'll start with the number 1 spot and move our way down to 12. Number 1, a little shaky this week, Ted Rifkin. Ted got beat down by Plotzker. He needs to be seriously concerned about the makeup of his team. He does get Brady back this week, but he loses Cam Newton to the bye. Right now he's relying heavily on Peyton Hillis and Ben Tate. So, it doesn't look good. This could be the week that Ted loses his grasp on the top spot because our number 2 team, Jason Plotzker, has seriously narrowed the gap. As far as the rankings go, I can't quite leapfrog Plotzker over Ted yet, as Ted does have a 2-win edge over him. But, Plotzker certainly got some first-place votes. As I mentioned, he beat Ted down pretty bad. He has arguably the 2 top overall players in fantasy football, LaShawn McCoy and Aaron Rodgers. Plotzker just has a fantastic team and is really putting the pressure on Rifkin. Number 3, Andrew Denenberg. Denenberg cleaned up last week. He posted his first weekly high points of the year. Regardless of his division opponents, how terrible they might be, Denenberg's team is very solid. He's 3rd in the league in overall points. He has a fantastic fantasy quarterback combo with Big Ben and Vic. Those 2 are a great combo, not only just in fantasy points, but also in sexually harassing murdered dogs. In at number 4, Andrew Oakes. Andrew Oakes went 0-2 last weekend, suffering his 3rd straight loss to myself, and also a humiliating defeat to Justin. He can't really even blame the bye weeks for it. He really was only missing Greg Jennings and Josh Freeman. Freeman hasn't even been that good. Oakes continues to get great production out of Arian Foster, who he was very wise to go out and get, especially with Ryan Matthews getting hurt this past week. Foster is obviously going to have a better end of the year than Matthews. Oakes is still in very good wildcard shape. He's in the top half of the league in points scored. He's got 8 wins. He's doing okay. Number 5, Billy Boris. This is the biggest riser this week from last week. Billy had a very strong 2-0 showing this past weekend, crushing division rival Bootsy. Billy has scored the fourth most points in the league, and while his division might be out of reach with Ted doing so well, he sort of looks like the current wild card favorite, either him or Oaks. Reggie Wayne is sort of dead weight, and it remains to be seen if Bill is going to get out of Carson Palmer what he's looking for and what he needs. So number 6, John Kraus. Kraus lost in a blowout fashion to Plotzker this past week. He beat Ben despite putting up just a pedestrian 95 points. Injuries to Darren McFadden and Hakeem Nicks, they don't look as serious as maybe they did initially. It looks like McFadden might play this weekend. Hakeem Nicks has sort of said that he's okay, which is nice for Kraus, but those two, obviously there's going to be some injury concerns going forward. Kraus has 2 huge matchups this week. He's got division rival Oaks and direct wildcard competition Bootsy. It could be separation Sunday for a lot of the wildcard contenders, and we'll touch on that a little bit later in the show. Number 7, Bootsy, my esteemed trade partner. Bootsy suffered a tough loss to Billy this week, and with Tim Tebow kind of coming crashing back down to earth, he might be in some trouble having traded away Cutler. He really only has the 2 quarterbacks now, unless he wants to pick up Blaine Gabbert, who's available. Bootsy plays 2 pivotal showdowns this weekend with Ben and Kraus, his direct wildcard competition. He'll really need a lot from new addition Larry Fitzgerald. The good news there is that Fitzgerald's playing the Rams, who are absolutely terrible. Number 8, Ben Boris. Ben struggled this past week, losing both matchups by pretty wide margins. But, he was hit pretty hard by the bye week blues. This week he gets back Cedric Benson, Matt Ryan, Tony Gonzalez, and potentially Andre Johnson. So, because of his total points, he's solidly in the hunt for the wild card. Just needs to step it up a little bit. He only has 6 wins right now. In at number 9, I put myself. I did go 2-0 last week. It was pretty nice. But I got a considerable amount of luck. The Bengals defense had 2 touchdowns for me, and I'm still in a pretty deep hole. My stable of running backs, Ray Rice, DeMarco Murray, Michael Turner, I think is very impressive. It looks like I'm getting pretty good value out of Crabtree, even though I stupidly traded away Steve Smith. It looks like Crabtree might bail me out a little bit. And Victor Cruz, sort of, my number 1 waiver guy, waiver pickup of the year, has stayed pretty hot. I do think I've done a lot to improve my quarterback situation. I'm picking up guys that are sort of big risk, big reward. Tavares Jackson and Jay Cutler. Cutler especially, but, Tavares Jackson as well throws a lot of picks. But, both of them can move a little bit. Both of them have, playmakers slightly in the receiving core, and obviously both are better than what I was working with before. Only putting up 50 points 2 weeks ago has really hurt my wild card chances as far as a tie break would be concerned, so I need to start stacking up some wins. Number 10, Justin. Justin is 8-8, but despite that, he's the 3rd lowest scoring team in the league. He's only 1/10 of a point in front of the 2nd lowest scoring team in the league, his brother. Phillip Rivers is just horrendous. Despite all this, Justin managed to go 2-0 last weekend and somehow got 2 touchdowns out of Nate Washington, one of them a rushing touchdown. I don't know who saw that coming. His record sort of indicates that he's in the middle of the wild card race, but his roster would seem to indicate otherwise. In at number 11, Brian Deutsch. Deutsch enjoyed a small lead over me going into Monday night because Des Bryant and DeMarco Murray conspired to fail at their profession. But Nick Novak put me over the top. Brian's team's really struggling. He's trying to overcome some deficiencies at wide receiver. And, with starting Colt McCoy and having Mark Sanchez, he may have taken the mantle from me as owner with the ugliest quarterback situation in the league. Number 12, last but not least, Ariel. Just like I don't spend much time talking about Ted's team when he keeps winning, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about Ariel's. He just sort of keeps losing. Ariel, it looks like he'll most likely be keeping Ryan Matthews and AJ Green and sort of rebuilding for next year. I think that's, a good strategy for him. All right, now before we get to the mailbag, I'll do a little running segment, the wild card watch. I'll run down a couple of the contenders and talk about the odds. The thing to remember is that with our league, things are so tight that it's everything's up in the air. There's really no real predicting anything. I mean, I actually went back and looked at last year. I was 2-6 before going on a run and winning the regular season, having the tying for the best record and having the most overall points at that tie. So anything can really happen at this point. Plotzker has a 4-game and a serious points lead on the Lane Bryant division. Ted has an even bigger points and wins lead on the Shame of Sherwood. And Denenberg has, basically had the Schindler division locked up since week 2. So it's not written in stone that those 3 win their division, but really any other result would be pretty surprising. With Ariel and Deutsch basically out of the running, we're sort of left with Justin, myself, Oaks, Kraus, Ben, Billy, and Bootsy looking like the realistic wildcard contenders. So here's sort of how I see the odds breaking down. Currently 7-9. Billy has 2 games left against Ben, 2 against Kraus, and 1 against Bootsy. He's the leading scorer of all current wildcard contenders, not by a huge margin, but Drew Brees should probably be getting back to his dominant self after his 1 week slip off. I would say we'll put Billy wildcard odds 3-1 currently. Next up, 8-8, Bootsy. With an 8-8 record and over 1,700 total points scored, Bootsy is definitely in the thick of things. He lost a tough one to Billy this past weekend, but still gets another crack at Billy in week 12. Bootsy plays Justin twice down the stretch as well, which is nice for him. This line will be adjusted if Tim Tebow loses his starting spot, leaving him with one really eligible quarterback. But I'd say current wildcard odds for Bootsy 8-1. 8-8, Andrew Oaks. Oaks has amassed a nice record. He went out and got Arian Foster and really helped himself by doing that. He has 2 games left with Kraus, 2 games with Bootsy, and 1 left with me, who I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, has beaten him 3 times in a row this year, all 3 times we played. I do like Oaks' team. I do like the fact that he's 3rd most in total points of all the wildcard contenders, but he plays Ted and Plotzker in week 14. So, that's almost a guaranteed 0-2, which is, when he might need those wins the most. So, looking at the schedule, I'd put Oaks' wildcard chances at 10-1. John Kraus, 8-8. Kraus trails a little bit in total points. Could be dealing with some injuries to some of his top guys, as I mentioned before. Kraus still plays me and Oaks both twice, and he has a key Week 13 showdown with Billy. So similar to Oaks, I sort of view these two teams. They have the same record, similar amount of points. I'd say that Kraus's wild card odds are 10-1. 7-9, myself, my team. When you look at my remaining schedule, kind of tells 2 different stories. On one hand, I have 3 games left against Deutsch and Ariel total, which is nice. But on the other hand, I played Denenberg twice and Plotzker twice. 2 pretty solid teams. So, with my newly solidified quarterback position, my mission is just to gain on total points and avoid winless weekends. At least go 1-1 if I can't go 2-0. A Week 14 showdown with Kraus could be pretty big, potentially to get that wild card spot. So I'd put myself right now at 12-1 odds. Ben at 6-10. Ben has 2 games left against both Billy and Bootsy, but the difference maker here is that he still has 2 games left against Ariel, which is nice. He'll need both those wins as he currently trails the wildcard lead by 2 wins. He's the only one in this group with only 6 wins. So, of the group, he's middle of the pack in total points. He definitely has some work to do. I'd say wildcard odds because of the trailing in the win category is 25-1. Finally, 8-8, Justin. Justin is on this list because he's amassed an 8-8 record, but that 8-8 record includes miracle wins over Ariel in week 1, Denenberg in week 2 by like less than 0.5 of a point or something, and then again against Ariel in week 5. He's 83 total points behind me, which is the next closest wildcard contender. So unless he can continue to stack up these miracle wins, Justin really has almost no chance. I'd say wildcard odds 50-1. All right, finally, open up the old mailbag. The old mailbag is pretty empty this week. I only got 1 question, and it's pretty nonsensical. But, constant mailbag contributor Jason Plotzker asks, Dear Mr. Bauer, please rank the following incidents of supposed rape in order of how likely you think the rape occurred. 1. Mike Tyson raping Leon Washington in Indiana. 2. Kobe raping a fat white chick in Colorado. Or 3. Big Ben raping a hot, skinny white chick in Georgia. Jason Plotzker. Very funny, Plotzker. I'm not sure if you are referring to the former Miss Black Rhode Island that Mike Tyson actually did rape, or if you think that he raped the Seahawks backup running back. I think Kobe got a bad rap. All he wanted to do was cheat on his wife, and he ended up dealing with all this bullshit. set him back just like Tiger Woods. And Big Ben, I think he hardly raped a girl. His security guard raped her, and Ben just watched. I mean, the guy has some standards, please. All right, well, that's it for the week. Thanks, Plosker, for getting the mailbag question in there. Guys, feel free to send anything in. And actually, one more thing before I let you go on the topic of, and this has just sort of been blowing up in the last hour or so. Ariel stacking waiver pickups without keeping a kicker or a defense. I think both sides make some logical points. I mean, it's not illegal. I mean, and that's, first and foremost to understand it's not against the rules. It's not highly unethical or anything like that. It is, in fact, a loophole, and he is doing, something sort of tricky to mess with his opponent this week. However, I do think it sort of is against the spirit of waivers. I mean, I don't know. It's something that we'll address at the Weenie Talk as far as what the rule might be in regards to having always to maintain a kicker or defense on your roster, or what we might do with free agent pickups. But I feel like if you are in a position in which you have no one to start and you need to pick up someone so that you don't have to drop one of your better players, it's one thing. But if you're just constantly week after week just stacking up until the day before the games and then dropping players, it's sort of screwing with everyone's waivers. And so I just don't feel like that's necessarily the fairest way of approaching it. But like I said, either way, it's not against the rules. It is affecting Krause this week, so I can't get too upset about it as he's a division rival of mine. But we'll certainly address it soon. Other than that, good luck this weekend. Should be interesting, and go Bears.